BeTheTalk, episode 147, featuring Ira Wolfe. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Ira Wolfe. Ira, are you ready to talk?
I absolutely am, Nathan. Excited to do it.
Ira S Wolfe is a millennial trapped in a baby boomer's body. He's known for his fierce passion for embracing exponential change and his commitment to understanding its impact on people, jobs, and work. Ira is an accomplished speaker and author, and he is the president of Success Performance Solutions. Ira's latest book is Recruiting in the Age of Googlizations: When the Shift Hits Your Plan. Ira Wolfe, welcome to the talk.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's, I guess about 2 weeks ago we met, and I was really excited to hear you were doing this. And it was actually one of those things after I got off the TED stage. It was like, hey, I wanted to share the experience of getting here. It was just one of those things that didn't get done. So now I get to do it.
Yeah, now we get to do it, Ira. I love this because, I mean, your talk is called Make Change Work for You. And you are Mr. Change. I mean, you are a licensed dentist. You have this whole career, and you have completely shifted gears and really lived the best of what you teach. So I know change and volatility is all par for the course. Please just summarize your talk for us in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just a minor correction. I'm actually not licensed anymore. When I walked away, I really walked away.
You cut the cord. Okay.
My tagline, I have a couple taglines, and one of them was, I loved everything about dentistry but dentistry.
Oh.
I liked everything that everybody else didn't. But part of that, when I was doing the TED Talk, when I was preparing for it, which we'll get into some of the other details on that, one of the things was somebody said, you just love dancing with change. And that was part of it. And, although today's, we were just talking about VUCA before, and we can explain what that is, but just how crazy things are. And every time you open an interface, it seems to be different than it was yesterday.
Including Skype, which we're doing right now.
The change, how fast things are occurring and how often they are. So, yeah, it's tough. But the TED Talk was about that. It was about, we got to live with change. Change is, the old saying, I think was Herculitus, had said that, the only constant in life is change. That's absolutely true. It just happens to be occurring at an exponential pace, and it makes all of us uncomfortable, but we've got to get there. We've got to work hard at doing it.
Well, and if you haven't seen this acronym talk universe of VUCA, it's what's happening all the time. Ira just mentioned it because we've been talking about this because every time you open up Skype, which I use to record, it's always different and hard to find people. So the acronym comes from, I believe, the United States Army. It's an acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's kind of a moniker for our times. Ira, in your talk, you turn it around. I love the positive spin, and you talk about, instead of it being those four things, you redefine VUCA as vision, understanding, community, and abundance. Please take us a little bit behind how you set that up and discovered those four possibilities to counteract these negative things.
Yeah, and to give credit where credit's due, I wish I came up with that kind of vice versa. It's done by I'm drawing a blank on the individual's name, but it's called VUCA Prime. So if you look up VUCA Prime, you'll see the origins of it. But I've yet to date to find somebody who says they don't agree that the world is more volatile. Even today, with the tweets and the news and things going on, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. It's much more complex, and it's ambiguous. And I think that's probably the one thing that people struggle with, is that ambiguity. Even when you think you got it all together, there's still a level of uncertainty. We're just not sure what those choices are. But the flip side of that was, if you have a clear vision where you're going, it doesn't mean you're just going to go from point A to point B. But at least if you have a vision, you have a path, and you're always working toward that. And rather than focusing on the volatility, you're focusing forward, and lots of different variations. Certainly understanding understanding who you are, understanding what some of these implications are, is critically important. The C and the A I've actually wrestled with, and I keep going back and forth with this. In the TED Talk, I talked about community. We're all part of a bigger community, and that's part of the struggle today. I mean, just this morning, or just an hour ago, I think we got the tweets that, all these tariffs are on, all the countries. I mean, talk about volatility and uncertainty. But I think the aspect that people forget about is we live in a global community now. We're not national. We're not isolated. And, you and I may be 60 miles apart, but we could be doing this with people 3,000 miles apart or 6,000 miles apart. So it really doesn't matter. So I keep going back between the C being communication, better communication, and community. And the A, again, I keep going, and this may even be a better term, is agility. Is just, we have to not just be adaptable, but we have to be good at being adaptable. And I think that's just, rather than just saying, hey, we'll go with the flow, or we'll see what happens, we've got to become agile. And somebody explained this years ago, is the difference between flexibility and versatility was versatility was flexibility if you were with skills.
Yeah.
You were actually adept at flexibility.
Well, and you're also, Ira, you're also describing a proactive, initiative-driven mode where you're not going, no, it's not good idea in these modern times to go with the flow. You need to carve your own way, but you also have to be agile and proactive and aware of whether it's working or not so that you can find a better way.
Yeah, and it's challenging. I mean, that's incredibly challenging because because we're saying we don't even know what it looks like. I'm doing something similar to this. Actually, I only have 3 minutes. It's a real short TED Talk. I'm doing it Monday for at an HR conference, and they asked me 3 questions, and one of the questions they're going to pose to me was, what's the world of work look like in 10 years? And part of that is 10 years out is like 100 years. Forecasting 100 years ago was just a few years ago. The reality is we're going to have 100 years of change in the next 5 years, if not 10 years. And forecasting things out 10 years is really talking about what we used to do in the mid 50s. I'm a little older than you, but when you're around, and they forecast stuff and they go, okay, in 100 years from now, this is when it's going to be like. And now we're saying, hey, we're going to have 100 years of change within the next 10 years. Well, and it's challenging, and it's tough to be proactive when things are changing that fast.
Ira, it's very similar. It reminds me of, hey, I'm going to start a business, Ira. And in days past, in decades past, you would tell me, well, you want to go to your local office of SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. You're going to walk in there. They're going to give you some free counseling, and they're going to help you write, Nathan, your 40-page business plan. And that's still
and follow that for 5 years, right?
Yeah. And it's like,
5 years and say, hey, how did we do?
Yeah. And so there's still that mode of thought in some of our business schools where you have to have the business plan. And it's like, no, you go to your local tech incubator, sign up for a startup weekend, which is like a 72-hour weekend immersive apprentice style competition where you actually validate business ideas and get into groups. And if you don't have a business idea, you can find and join somebody else with a better business idea, join their team. And there are actually thriving 7-8 figure businesses and beyond today that have been incubated because of these simple models that scale and are very, as you mentioned, agile.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think part of that goes into, and kind of deviating off the TED Talk, but it's certainly part of that, is the necessity to be curious. I love this term. It was in my book. I heard it a few years ago from Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman was one of the founders of Priceline. Most people are familiar with that. And a number, he's a serial entrepreneur. Super good guy. And he talked about info sponging. And info sponging was the ability, he wakes up every morning and he reads something that people say, why are you reading that? What's that have to do with your business? And he says, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on in other industries and other parts of the world and other parts of life. And how could that possibly affect what I do today? And, I always gave the example of like fast foods. didn't necessarily come. It came from banking because they had a drive up a window. And where did fast food come? So they say, well, if you can do banking as a teller in a drive through, why can't you do that? Why can't we get food there too? So it's how do things relate that? So every day I whatever headline comes through, if it looks interesting, I read it. I have no use for blockchain. But today I read something on blockchain, and most people won't even know what it was, and we won't go into what it is, other than people may know it from Bitcoin. But it was like, how's that going to affect work in 10 years? How is that going to affect hiring? Which is where I spend my time. And it's going to radically change how people get jobs and careers and how we work and how we do banking and how we, even how we, transfer money. So it's crazy stuff that's out there, but it's fun. We absolutely have to be curious, and even if you're not agile, you have to be open to that idea.
You got to lean into it, Talk Universe. We've been enjoying this talk with Ira Wolfe, and he gave a talk called Make Change Work for You. In a moment, we're going to be back with Ira Wolfe in the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with the Blitz Round. Ira Wolfe, I'm going to ask you some either-or questions related to the actual preparation and performance of your recent TEDx talk. Ira, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Were you selected to speak, or did you apply?
We applied. Yeah, in the Lehigh Valley, at least up to this point, everybody's applied.
So are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I am, but that's not the way to do a TED Talk. And that, I felt when I applied, I had a great message. I had a couple messages. I had actually a couple topics I felt to talk on. It was a challenge. It was really, really tough. And they said, they told us up front, the worst people to prepare for a TED Talk are people who are comfortable speaking. Not that they're not comfortable speaking, but they have a message. I speak to business audiences. They want solutions. And in TED, we're supposed to present an idea. I mean, you've been there. You understood it. It's not to communicate a message. It's to instill an idea and get people to ask questions afterwards. That was really hard.
Ira, I'm circling back because I didn't understand whether you are a memorizer or whether you're an improviser, or if you put both of them together.
I can memorize easily, but it was the worst possible thing to do for a TED Talk.
Okay. So what did you do instead?
Well, I did. I rehearsed it. I rehearsed it everywhere. I rehearsed, and I guess in some ways that was memorizing it, but it wasn't.
It's
I
not
just got comfortable with the flow.
Yeah.
I mean, I would read it, and then I put the paper down, and it was wherever it took me to be able to do that. But that was intense. It was, at the gym, I do a Stairmaster or elliptical, and it's like for weeks I wasn't listening to my iPod, I wasn't watching TV, I wasn't reading anything. I was literally just reciting. People thought I was probably nuts because I was talking to myself, for a half hour, 45 minutes, driving down the street. I was just constantly rehearsing. I
think that's brilliant, Ira, because you actually had your heart rate up. And that's a great, if we always say, some of the people I interview, I mean, when we get on this, it's like anything you can do, run around the block and say your talk from partially from memory or whatever. It's not about memorizing, but it's about getting that heart rate up and simulating the conditions. So that said, Ira, did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I'd say both. I think I was the second to the last to go on that day. So, and then there's an intermission. So I saw everybody going through it. And some of the people who were really struggling ahead of time did really, really well. And then it's like, okay, now not only do I have my bar to meet, but even some of the people who were struggling really did well. As soon as I went on stage, it just rolled. It just took off. So I ahead of time, there was a little bit of nerves, as soon as I hit the stage, it just came out.
Ira, what advice for closers do you have? You're the second last to go. I was actually the last to go, so I love talking to other closers.
Yeah. you got to relax. I mean, I just sat out there and watched it. You sort of enjoy it. I mean, it's easy to say now. I'm not sure when you're in the moment if what advice you can give to somebody, but it's, for many people, that's our Super Bowl. I mean, that's our one chance to get there. And especially if it's the first time. I mean, I'm sort of anxious to do it again, but now I'm hesitant because I keep looking for that. What's that idea? I have a lot of great messages, but what's the idea behind the message? But yeah, I think you just have to enjoy the moment, but it's easier said than done.
Ira, what's a tip, technique, or a tool that helped you?
I think going back, I think it was just rehearsing it. I think the one tip that I'd give to anybody, and I didn't understand it, they say, well, TED Talk could be 18 minutes. If you can do it in 7, do it in 7. And I was told that, and they go, no, I have too much to say. I can't possibly get my message out in 7 or 8 minutes. If I had to do anything today, the one thing that I would do is do it in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And really make it concise and to the point.
Yeah, and I can prove, I used to, actually look at the numbers and the visibility for a different, organization, and the shorter talks. If you can get a sub 10-minute talk, you're going to automatically get more views as a result of that. Cause people, I
totally agree with that.
We don't have 18 minutes, or 17 or 19 or whatever it is. So, Ira, it's a performance. So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I was sort of in the zone. I'm not, that's tough. I'm not sure if there was anything that was, completely weird or different. I'm not sure.
All right, Talk Universe. This is the first person. This is almost the first person that's ever answered that in the question. Get in the zone, stay in the zone. It's awesome. We've been enjoying this conversation with Ira Wolfe, whose TEDx Lehigh River talk is called Make Change Work for You. You can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com and check out that talk. We'll have a link to it so you don't have to type it all out in YouTube. You can also visit Ira's website there at IraWolfe.com. It's Ira Wolfe is WOLFE with an E on the end .com. And in a moment, we'll be back with Ira Wolfe for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Ira Wolfe. What's your final word of advice for Talk Universe?
Everyone should put TEDx on their bucket list, but just because it looks easy, it takes a lot of work. I remember hearing, I think it was Harry Hamlin, if you remember from LA Law days, and I heard him on an interview, and he must have just given his TED talk. I don't know if it was TED or a TEDx. And they said, what was it like? And he talked about the same experience that I had. And here's an actor, here's somebody who's read scripts and memorized scripts and done this. And he said for 3 months, he said he thought his wife was going to divorce him. He was completely in the zone, just practicing. He said he's driving down the street, talking to himself, rehearsing this. And I was like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. So I think it's just be wary that just because it looks easy, and you like to get in front of people and you can talk, just be wary. Be wary. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. And I admire the people more now that do it than I even did before. And the easier it looks, the more I admire them. It's tough, but it's really worth doing.
Ira Wolfe, thanks for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks, Nathan. Great show. Good luck with it.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.